It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Business, featuring interviews with South Carolina business executives, community leaders, and government dignitaries. Let's Talk Business is a truly one-of-a-kind business-to-business talk show. And now, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. This is actually episode number 14, and I am your host, Rick Jenkins. It's good to have you here, whether you are checking out one of our videos on our YouTube channel, or maybe you have downloaded one of our podcasts. Regardless of how you are accessing the content, I'm certainly glad that you are. We've got a good show for you today. I'm going to be talking to three executives. I'll introduce those three to you now, and then we will take a quick break and we'll come back and get started. I'm going to start. Our first guest today will be John Kyle. John is the Vice President of Commercial Business Development in the Greenville and Spartanburg areas for Community First Bank. Community First has not been in the upstate market for too terribly long, but they did open their first banking office in Oconee County in South Carolina back in 1990, and they came into the Greenville area in 2019. And I tell you what, John's got a tough job, because this is an incredibly competitive banking market in the upstate. There's probably close to 40 banks, if not more, in the upstate. So I look forward to hearing what John has to say about this. And a little bit of trivia about John. He is a 7th degree black belt, so I will be on my best behavior. Andy Carr will be my second guest, and Andy is the president and CEO at SCMEP, the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And Andy and his folks stop by from time to time. As a matter of fact, I think on the last episode, we had one of the folks from SCMEP stop in. Always knowledgeable, always intelligent folks. And my friend Andy Carr, who I've known for quite some time, is no different. So I look forward to talking with him. I think most of you know, but SCMEP is a private, nonprofit organization, and their goal basically is to assist manufacturers in South Carolina in any way that they need assistance. They fold up under and are funded by the federal and state departments of commerce. So we'll talk with Andy. And then our third guest today will be Heath Dillard. Heath is the CEO and the president at Visit Greenville, South Carolina. Now, I know that everyone has heard about Visit Greenville, and he's got an enviable job, I think. He took this job not too long ago. I think he's only been in about a year. But he spent about 2 decades up in the Charlotte area in some economic development types of jobs. But Visit Greenville, one of their responsibilities, their mission basically, is to sell the Greenville area to folks to come in here and make it a place to live, to make it a place to play and to work. And from the looks of things, Heath and his staff are doing a bang-up job. As a matter of fact, if I can judge by the amount of traffic on Woodruff Road in December, they're doing a really good job. We no longer are a hidden gem. But we'll talk to John, we'll talk to Andy, and we'll talk to Heath. But we're first going to take a quick commercial break. It's time for a 60-second tip. And our first snippet of advice comes from our friends at Burr and Forman. We're going to hear from Doug Lineberry. Doug is a partner with Burr and Forman, and Burr and Forman is a premier law firm in the Southeast with several offices in South Carolina, including the 3 major markets, Greenville, Columbia, Charleston. Let's take a 60-second break and hear what Doug has to say. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Doug Lineberry. I'm an intellectual property attorney with Burr & Forman LLP here in Greenville. Today I'd like to talk about protecting your IP, but doing it the smart way. You know, we Americans are a go-getter people. We like to do our own stuff. We self-help. We go to Home Depot. We go to Lowe's. We try to do stuff on our own a lot. I will discourage you from doing that with trademarks and with patents. If you have intellectual property, you need to have that handled by a trained professional in that area. I get it. Your sister's brother-in-law's husband is an attorney and might be able to help you with a car wreck. That doesn't mean they should be working on your patent. I do think you need a specialist in this area. I don't think clients need to be doing it on their own. A lot of the times, a difficult situation for an intellectual property attorney is coming behind a client who has tried to do their own work. Sometimes they may look into it. Often they do not. If you have any questions about what to protect as far as your intellectual property or how to protect it, please reach out to Burr & Forman. We're here to help. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I'm here with my first guest today. My first guest is John Kyle. John is the Vice President of Commercial Business Development in the Greenville and Spartanburg areas for Community First Bank. And as I said when we came on the show, the banking industry is crazy competitive here in the upstate. And Community First and John has his work cut out for him to kind of work through all of those waters. And so, John, let's talk about that. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome. It's good to have you here. And before we get into business, let's talk a little personal stuff. And before we get too far, I'm going to talk about what we talked at the outset, or what I mentioned. You are a 7th degree black belt, and you owned 3 martial arts studios in the past, correct?
I did. Martial arts was a huge passion. I was one of the people where when they said, follow your passion, I said, okay.
Right.
Back in 1982, I finally got, my parents finally let me start taking martial arts lessons. And it was from my older brother's friend who was a black belt at the time. So he kind of started teaching me a little bit in the basement. And then we were finally able to start going to his dojo, his traditional taekwondo that I started in.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone was kung fu fighting back then. So that was
Great song
yeah.
from the 70s. You know who sang that?
No.
Guy named Carl Douglas. I can't believe I know that, but I bet you one of your favorite movies was The Karate Kid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Miyagi?
Enter the Dragon. Oh, man,
Yeah.
that was great stuff. So I started in that, and I instantly fell in love with it, had a passion for it. When I was 16, I switched over to what they called American Karate at the time, which was more kickboxing,
Right.
and fell in love with that, too, and I stuck with that, and the gentleman who was my master instructor then was my master instructor all the way through. He was a great guy from D.C. I grew up just outside of D.C. in Maryland, and I just loved it. And I knew when I was 16 years old that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Obviously, that held true for the most part.
Right.
And I ended up won some good championships. But really, what I loved was teaching and developing people and getting involved in the community and owning and operating martial arts schools that became the passion.
Tell me something, and then we're going to get on to business, folks. But can you do what Mr. Miyagi did and catch a fly with chopsticks?
Absolutely.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I charge for that. So it's
don't
pretty
blame-
expensive.
I would charge for that as
I
well.
don't think I can do that.
I would charge for it as well. One more personal thing before we do get into business, though. You have been around a lot, and you have not been in your present job for too terribly long.
Correct.
You've been several places. Where born and raised, and tell me
So I
about
was born and raised in Maryland, and I grew up in a very small town it was a small town surrounded by big towns. It was called Garrett Park. And so Rockville, Bethesda, just outside Washington, D.C. So it was a Washington metropolitan area. I grew up there, and then I was offered a position to teach martial arts in Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii. And so I, of course, jumped at that, which, for you and I, we understand the younger generation may not know who Magnum P.I. was. But man, I thought I was going to be like Magnum P.I. and girls in bikinis, and
Right.
And the big island was not like that. But it was fun, and that's where I opened up my first martial arts school, and it was great. It was there for almost a decade. But recently, I've been here in the Greenville market for about a little over 3 months, and my wife and I just moved in from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Colorado Springs is beautiful. I've been there a time or two, but Greenville is beautiful too.
It is, absolutely. Having a great time so far.
Well, welcome to the upstate. Let's talk some business.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned, the banking industry in the upstate is crazy, crazy competitive.
It is.
Around 40 banks or so. I haven't checked it in a while, but there for a while it was between 38 and 42 banks, depending on when mergers were occurring.
That's right.
And so now Community First, which I love the name, Community First, the community, the first word, Community First, it's great. Mm-hmm. And I think it really describes you all pretty well. But how does a small bank make some ripples in this huge ocean of competitiveness?
I think that's a fantastic question. If you look at just about every industry that you have, you're going to have an immense amount of competition now. If you have a hair salon, if you are a handyman, if you have a construction company, if you're an auto dealer, there's competition everywhere. And I think it really boils down to a couple of things. Number one is you have to offer value and invite engagement. And that's one of the things that we'll do, and we'll talk about that later. And the other thing is by getting involved in the community, and if you look at Greenville in particular, it's such an active market with the business community. You look at what the chamber's doing and how engaged everybody is with the chamber and other networking events and the growth that's been happening here. And there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of synergy, and there's a lot of involvement on people's part. They want to be involved. And I think if you just tap into that, that can help set you apart. So we've developed programs to help small business owners, because that's what we do. That's what, not only what we do. Obviously, we help the consumer side, but as far as business goes, we look for ways to help them grow. And as a former small business owner myself, I know full well the pain that a lot of small business owners can go through when it comes to taxes, advertising and marketing, financing, working capital, employees, leadership, whatever it is. I get that. And so we've created a program that can help them with that. So it's really nice to be able to do that. So that's actually the difference is, I think when you look at the really big banks, is they're going to serve tons of people, and we're not. We're going to get very focused in on who it is we're going to help and how we're going to help them.
Yeah, depending on who you are and what you need, sometimes a small bank is much better for you than a large bank. And, I also know, because I have started my own business and you're watching it right now. And so I have had a lot of those questions that you just talked about. But tell me a little bit more about it. You said you started a program for small business owners. If I remember right, you got something coming up here fairly soon where small business folks are going to get together. Let's hear about that.
So on November 8th, on Wednesday, we are doing what is called a business owner roundtable event. And it's a fun event, and it's for just that. It's for business owners to come together. And what we do is when they walk through the door, we have them fill out a piece of paper. It's all anonymous, and they put down their biggest problem that they're facing, which, again, it could be anything that has to do with business. And so what they do is they throw it in a basket, and then we get everybody sort of in groups around the tables, and we pull out the first problem. We say, okay, guys, here's the first problem. We read it out, and we say, first off, we want to hear from the people who have actually dealt with this and overcome this problem. We'd love to hear what you did to overcome this issue. And then it's about ideas, and it's about throwing those solutions out, the possibilities. And then the business owner who, sometimes they don't always want to be known, for what the problem was. Sometimes they just want to really remain anonymous. So other times they really don't care. But it gives them the ability to say, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I didn't even think about taking that approach. I never considered reaching out for help in that area to solve this issue. And so now you're talking about solutions. And it's so easy for business owners to just totally, we're human beings, right? So we can focus in on the negative, and we can focus in on what the problem is and start to really feel beat down or helpless, or, boy, this is going to take me so long to get out of this. But when you get surrounded by other people who are really from different industries but still facing the same issues, and everybody's talking about solutions, you start to really get lifted up. And I don't care who you are, as a business owner or a business leader, you need that emotional support and that motivation really to be able to push you through, because sometimes that's what you can take the actions. But if you get that type of support from a really good mastermind group, it can push you through just faster. And that's what we're looking to create.
Have you had this meeting before?
I've done this before, yeah, in Colorado.
But not here?
Not here, no.
So you brought this with you from
Yes,
Colorado.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How are you going about reaching out to small business folks?
So we're doing it methodically. We're knocking on doors. We're posting things on social media. Obviously, we're calling our customers too. That's our we're going to reach out to them first and invite them. And then it's going to chamber events and other events and letting people know about it, talking to small business owners. So it's very organic. And not everybody's open to it, and I know as a small business owner, sometimes we're like, no, I could do this myself.
Right.
And there's a certain pride that comes with that, and that's great. But then others are like, no, I want to learn.
Right.
And so that's who we're tapping into, and those are the ones that experience the most growth too.
Once again, when is it?
That's going to be November 8th, Wednesday, November 8th at 5 o'clock. And it's going to be at our Greenville location. So this is one of the ones that's going to be in person. And it's kind of important for this type of an element, this type of a structure, to have an in-person feel to it. A lot of the other ones that are coming are going to be more virtual based. And then that way we can host people from everywhere.
Right. It's really interesting. I will do my best to be there, as a matter of fact. I like the sound of it. So I would encourage you, if you're watching the show or if you're listening to the show on the podcast, we'll make sure that we have the information up on the screen for you to be able to contact John in the bank. And if you're a small business owner, I encourage you to go. So let's get back to the competitiveness. If I had to guess a couple things or write down a couple things that I think banking is all about, one of them is customer service, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially the smaller bank as it compares. to larger banks. And then on the same type of thing is relationships, right?
Absolutely.
I grew up in a really small town in central Kentucky, and the banks were small, and we knew the bankers, and they knew us. And boy, do I miss those days.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Banking has definitely changed. The industry has changed. We have, I've worked for the larger banks, and this is actually my first go around with a community bank. And I love the aspect of it. I love the feel of it. I love the structure of it. I love the availability of the bankers. So for instance, here's a great differentiator that I never knew as a business owner. And I certainly didn't know in banking. And I didn't know until I got to a community bank. When you come in and you're looking for the money, you have to supply all the financials. That's all it's done by. And very good reason, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of the banks, they're so busy, they're inundated with requests. And so they have to make sure that they streamline their systems. With us, we're not trying to get everybody in through the door. We're not concerned with that. That's not our focus. That's not our goal. We want business, obviously, just like any business. We need to generate revenue, but we want to do it in such a way that we're doing the right thing. So we actually have a committee. So if you were to apply for a loan, and let's say you're asking to borrow, I don't know, let's say $250,000 for the loan. And we're running the financials, and it's kind of iffy. And then what we have to do is we actually say, okay, well, what can we do to make this work for them? And a lot of times, if it's borderline, we'll take it to a committee. And when we're talking to the committee, what I can do is I can talk to them. I don't have to talk to policy or procedure. I talk to them. And I say, listen, let me tell you about this business. Let me tell you about the business owners. Let me tell you what they're doing in their community. Let me tell you what they're doing for their employees. And let me tell you how this affects everybody within this 5-mile radius, and the difference that this money is going to make in the life of the business and in the life of the people that it affects. And so sometimes there's things that we could do. Maybe we drop it down, but there's always some way to be able to move it forward most of the time. And what I'm doing in those instances, and the bankers, our commercial bankers are doing in those instances, is they're talking to the hearts. And you can see sometimes where the heads are going to start going, okay, this makes sense, not on just a financial aspect, but it makes sense. And so this is what we need to do. This is what's right for the community. And so it's not 100% every single time, but a lot of the times it is. And you don't have that opportunity for a banker to really fight for you. And then that's where, as you said, when the banker gets to know you, they get to know you, they get to know your past, they get to know how you run your business, how you interact with your customers. They know about you and what you're doing in the community. We can take that information and go back and discuss that. And that can be a differentiator to make sure that we're going to be able to get you the working capital that you need, where you wouldn't be able to do that in another institution.
So a quick tangent. We're talking about small banks and knowing each other, right? In 1980, I was in 8th grade in a small town, like 3 stoplights, right? And that morning, walked to school 2 miles away, uphill both ways, right? And, my mom said something was after school, and she goes, oh, I forgot to take out money. Just drop by the bank and tell Mary to give you some. Right? So when school was over, I just went by the bank, and I went in, and I knew Miss Mary. And I said, Miss Mary, Mom said for you to give me some money. And, of course, Miss Mary gave me money and took it out of Mom's account. Now, that can't happen today. No. But that's the kind of small-town customer service that I like. And, of course, it has its equal in today's world. And let's talk about that for a minute more. We talked about something, and you mentioned that as an example of relationships, or you were talking to someone who wanted a loan, and you kind of talked them out of a loan.
I did.
Once you understood the circumstances.
Right.
Because it wasn't what was best for them, right?
That's right. I think it's easy for people who are in a sales position to say, okay, well, you want to borrow money. I need to get the deal done. I need to hit my numbers because my boss is breathing down my neck. And so I'm going to get this done. We take a different approach. And I know I take a different approach. I'm going to sit with them. I'm going to talk with them. I'm going to take them out to lunch. I'm going to take them out to coffee. I'm going to go to their office. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk with them. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So for instance, in the case that you're talking about, the customer wanted to borrow approximately $100,000, and they wanted to do more advertising and marketing. And so I said, okay, great. But something in the back of my head was, telling me something's a little off. And so I asked him, I said, for about the past 2 years or so, you've been doing a lot of marketing. How much have you already spent in advertising and marketing? And I can't remember the numbers offhand, but it was a good amount. and they still weren't generating the revenue that they wanted to. And I said, okay, so there's something off, right? And I said, okay, well, walk me through this. And their structure for their business was they would spend the money in advertising and marketing. They would then get the inquiry, whether that was an email or phone call or, however it was that the prospect was reaching out to them. And then from that inquiry, they would have to set an appointment. And from the appointment, they would then have to see if they could onboard a new customer. And I said, okay, so let's, out of all the advertising, how many calls did you get? Let's just break it down per month. What's the average? Okay. Now from those calls, right, those inquiries, how many appointments did you set? And from those appointments or conversations that you had, how many became customers? And it was like the numbers just dropped off a cliff. As soon as they would talk to the person or the prospect, and then the number just dropped off a cliff. And so between them talking to a customer and them being able to onboard them and generate revenue, there was a giant gap. And I said, listen, I don't think you need money for advertising and marketing. I said, I think you need to learn how to sell your product. I said, there's a big gap there. And so the need isn't, you don't need more money to do exactly what you've always been doing. And I didn't say that to him, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So just by going through that simple process, I was able to pinpoint exactly where the challenge was and what they needed. And it wasn't something that we could help with. And so, but I was able to direct them, to a couple of places where they could get the sales training for both themselves and the staff. And then they were able to generate the revenue. And then, because if you think about it, when a business owner comes to you and they say, I need $50,000, I need $100,000. Okay, well, why don't you just sell $100,000 more of your product or service, right? Because that would probably solve the problem. And so with that, I knew that, they didn't need me, they needed something else. And I knew I wasn't going to do the deal because we're going to give them $100,000. And then in about 12 months or so, they're going to be in the exact same problem or the exact same situation, and they wouldn't be able to pay us back. Right. And so it's not good for us, and it certainly wasn't good for them to put them in that same position.
Right. That's good stuff. That's relationship building. And I would assume that is the type of advice and guidance in part that will come out of the Small Business Roundtable.
Absolutely.
That is coming pretty soon.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. John, I appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It was good to see you. Folks, that is John Kyle. He's Vice President of Business Development for Community First Bank for the Greenville and Spartanburg areas. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back with Andy Carr, who is the CEO at SCMEP. But before we do, it's time for another pro tip, and this time it's from our wealth management advisor, and that is Jeff Froman. He is with Thompson and Froman, and they are a financial advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Solutions. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
This week, we're going to talk about planning for retirement in our retirement countdown. Let's talk about things you need to do as you approach retirement. 10 years out, you want to look at your income needs in retirement and increase your savings, really get into that if it's necessary. You also want to check your tax diversification. We talked about this in a previous financial tip of the week. There's tax-free, tax-deferred, and taxable kinds of savings. Make sure you're well diversified across the tax spectrum. 5 years out, you want to look at your retirement goals. What are you going to do with all this newfound flexibility? What are you passionate about? How will you spend your time? Focus in on those goals and get ready for them. 2 years out, plan for your Social Security distribution. When you take it is important. The longer you wait to take it, the higher your Social Security check is going to be. And finally, 1 year out, check your expenses. Make sure that the income needs you're planning for are going to meet what your expenses are. Some expenses will go up in retirement, some will go down. Be ready for it. If you need assistance, talk to your financial advisor or Google me, Jeff Froman, Ameriprise.
Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I'm your host, Rick Jenkins, and I appreciate you joining us. My second guest today is Andy Carr. Andy is the president and the CEO at SCMEP, or the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And I have folks on from SCMEP from time to time, and they are always bright, they're always intelligent, they know their stuff, and I know this guy's no different. Andy, welcome.
Thank you, Rick.
It's good to have you here.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Well, before we start talking business, I want to talk about you for a minute for the folks out there who may not know you, and you haven't heard him talk a whole lot yet, but you have an accent that's not from here. Where are you from originally?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So when I'm not doing voiceover dubs for Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or House of Dragons, actually originally from just outside Edinburgh in Scotland.
Right.
I came to Greenville in 1988. So I'm not sure if that qualifies as me as Southern just yet, but 35 years.
It's close, man.
I hope
close.
so. I hope so.
I've been in Greenville for 20 years now, a couple of decades, and I thought I was a South Carolinian, but somebody told me once I had to be born here. But I'm as close as you can get, I guess. But you have been here a long time.
Yes.
We talk from time to time, and I know that you have gone back to, you go back from time to time to Scotland. Mm-hmm. When's the last time you were back?
I was back there in July.
Okay.
Actually, yes, yeah. My mom still lives there, and she had to have a pacemaker put in July.
Goodness.
Everything turned out absolutely fabulous, but yeah, I had to spend 2 weeks over there in July looking after her.
Yeah. Well, you came here in a long time ago, and you have been with SCMEP a long time, and you have been in the manufacturing industry forever.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Just kind of give me the brief overlook of Andy's career in this industry.
Okay, so the reason I came to Greenville, South Carolina, is I worked for a company called Lucas Industries, an automotive supplier out of Birmingham, England. And I was a project engineer and got moved around to various locations. And the next engagement for me was Greenville, South Carolina. So I arrived here in March 1988 for a 6-month project to help introduce the lean manufacturing tools and techniques at the plant on Pelham Road. Today, that plant is owned by Standard Motor Products, but it's the same building, and I think certain elements of the product line are the same. But a fantastic plant, a lot of innovative technologies, a lot of innovative workforce practices, 4-day week and things like that back in 1988. Great team of people, and I was a very young engineer there, a real chance to learn. Greenville it's a great place today. It was a great place back then. Yeah. It's even better today, but fantastic weather for somebody from the UK. When they explained to me that orange thing in the sky was called the sun, that was a start.
So is it true over there? Lots of rain, lots of clouds, lots of wind?
Much more than Greenville.
Yeah,
and a heat wave in Scotland is considered something that's maybe in the upper 60s.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So yes, very different, very different.
Well, what do you say we talk business?
No, that's why we're here, right?
Let's talk business. Let's talk about auto manufacturing first. We know a thing or two about auto manufacturing in South Carolina. Of course, we got BMW came in the early 90s, right? And then Volvo followed, and Daimler vans, the Sprinter van in North Charleston followed. And a lot of folks, the people in the business community, they know this, but there's a lot of folks who don't know that South Carolina exports more passenger-ready vehicles than any state in the United States, and more tires than anywhere in the world. You can make a case that South Carolina is the auto capital of the world if you wanted to, even though our friends in Detroit would probably disagree. And so let's talk about Detroit. The United Auto Workers have gone on strike.
Yes.
And it started a few months ago. It picked up speed yesterday when another 7,000 people went on strike. And so we all know, you got Chevy, you got Ford, you got Chrysler over there. Huge strike, big stuff happening. Does it impact us at all?
It is, Rick, yes. We're very fortunate, very close relationship with the manufacturing community here in South Carolina. And for about the last 10 days, myself and our staff, we have been pulsing the folks in the automotive supply chain to see what's going on. Last week, we learned of a couple of upstate Tier 1 and maybe Tier 2 manufacturers that were slow, that had to idle production lines because they supplied the big three, and then it had to put some people in temporary layoff. You're right, there was, I think, a Stellantis plant went down yesterday, and I think there's now a GM plant in Texas that's gone down, and that is starting to affect more of our supply chain. A lot of our automotive customers or clients in the automotive supply chain, they are part of the supply chain for BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, and then also Hyundai and Kia in Alabama and Georgia, and that insulates them a little bit. But yeah, it's a concern right now, Rick.
Yeah, any idea how long this is going to last? Anybody's guess right now, isn't it?
I don't know, but I think the sooner that it ends, the better for everybody and the better for the country.
Of course. One of the things that I always say this about SCMEP, every time I have one of you guys on here, I always say that at the heart of SCMEP's mission is to assist manufacturers in the state of South Carolina pretty much in any way those manufacturers need help, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of at the heart of what you all do. You all are here to support that industry, and you do so in countless ways, and I've seen you do it over the years. One of the things that you do, and it's right there on your website, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see it in it, is you offer a competitiveness review.
That's right, yes.
And it doesn't cost anything.
That's right.
And I'm not sure exactly how it works, but you're going to tell us. It's like a one-day deal, right? And tell me what happens.
It can be. So basically, it's an assessment. It takes a 30,000-foot look at your business. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to establish the constraints. What is holding your business back today, or maybe a month from now, 6 months, or a year from now? How do you prepare for that? What constraints do you need to overcome to make sure that you either remain competitive or become more competitive?
Right.
Those assessments are typically conducted by 2 of our field staff team. And, they are going to have a lot of manufacturing experience. They're going to come in there. We're honest. We ask a lot of questions, and we tell the truth. And if the baby's ugly, we tell you the baby's ugly. But the very important thing is what we are looking to do is make sure that we come back with a series of time-phased recommendations. This says basically if we were in your seat, Mr. or Mrs. Plant Manager or Vice President of Operations, faced with these challenges, here's the steps that we would take. There is no obligation. They can put that report in file 13, but typically, 2/3 of the time to 3/4 of the time, the manufacturing company ends up engaging with SCMEP to help actually implement, one or more of those recommendations.
Do you have an idea of how many of these you might do a year?
Yes, we actually have a goal. It's actually one of our KPIs. Yeah, so we look to do about 60 of those a year. Sometimes we exceed that. Sometimes it comes in a little bit less. But that is actually one of the metrics for the companies because it is such a valuable tool to our clients,
right?
And it generates business for us.
And how do you solicit that tool? I mean, you've got folks. I'm sorry, but I forget what they're called. The folks,
regional vice president.
Thank you. The regional VPs. I would assume that that's part of what they are talking to their clients about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things, right? Because our products, our services that we offer, it's a huge listing, and it can be overwhelming for a manufacturer. Right. So what we always look to do is focus in on the assessment. And the beauty of the CR, it's like an example of when you're talking to a doctor or something like that. If you just want a quick prescription written, yeah, there's times for that, and we certainly have clients that just come in and fix this problem. We're glad to do that. But for a long-term relationship and one that really gets to the root causes of things, what you want is a doctor that actually takes time to listen, right, talk to you, and come up with a proper diagnosis. Right. And that's what the CR allows us to do, is to really get in there and understand what's going on in that company, what its challenges are, and the constraints that it's facing.
Let's stick with assessments for a minute. Mm-hmm. You also do an assessment for Industry 4.0 types of issues. And I think most of us know what I4 is, but I mean, it's all the types of things that are tied to the big technology today, whether that be artificial intelligence or virtual reality or the Internet of Things or predictive analytics, smart factories, right? And so I would guess, Andy, that for at least small to mid-sized manufacturers, it is difficult to keep up with technology today. And how do they do that? And you all can help them in that regard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, we've got this whole new toolkit of exciting things, the manufacturing 4.0 or advanced manufacturing technologies. The one thing that hasn't changed in manufacturing is typically 4 main challenges. Reduce costs, improve quality, improve safety and employee morale, and improve delivery. But now we've got this box full of shiny new toys, which is fantastic.
Big box.
You're absolutely right, Rick. There's a perception that those technologies are suitable only for the Boeings and the GEs and the BMW. It's like everything else. Most of us, 25, 30 years ago couldn't afford a PC or a laptop.
Right.
Now, because of the demand and the volumes and the production things, everybody can. And those technologies are starting to make their way. They're migrating down the supply chain. It's our job at SCMEP to help educate people about those technologies, particularly the benefits, the things of those technologies. It never needs to be technology for technology's sake. What's it going to do for the manufacturer's bottom line? What constraints, what challenges is it going to help them overcome? So the assessment that we rolled out earlier this year is there to do that. It's to help them understand and identify within the company which tools might be best suited, which ones of the new advanced manufacturing technologies are going to help your bottom line soonest and the best. So that's what that assessment's about.
Let's switch gears to workforce challenges for a second. Manufacturing, all industries deal with workforce challenges, right? It's been around forever, and the manufacturing industry is no different. I say sometimes that this ain't your daddy's manufacturing anymore. There was a time way back when, and I think that stigma still exists to some degree with folks, but there was a time way back when you went in, you worked on a line, and you tightened the bolt, right? But nowadays, what might happen is someone comes in and manages the robots that are tightening the bolt. Right. Just saying, whatever, right? How does SCMEP assist manufacturers with the challenges of making sure that they get the right people and retain the right people?
Again, the workforce has been a huge challenge here, Rick, particularly for manufacturers and particularly for the last maybe 6-7 years.
Jobs are there, right?
The jobs are there, yes. In fact, Executive Director William Floyd from DEW, just at the South Tech conference today, I think there's 120,000 jobs open right now, unfilled. They are there. And, basically, what we always do is we always try and work with our clients to encourage them, educate them, and help move them towards being what's known as an employer of choice. 3 elements on that one, is to help them recruit better, to help retain ones, and then to build and enhance their reputation in the community so that the firm, the manufacturing company is viewed as a place where people want to go to work. A whole suite of services behind that, and including a new assessment that'll be rolled out later this year to help companies, really, really understand what that is and, basically stand out. For so many years, and it still exists, there's a lot of services out there to help companies market their products and services better. What you're starting to see now is you need to be able to market your company in the labor marketplace to be able to attract employees.
Did I hear you just mention the 3 R's?
Yes, you
Recruitment, retention, and reputation.
Yes.
And I learned that from Adrian Temple, who joined me on a prior episode. Thank you, Adrian. So
that would be the 4th. That would be reinforcement.
That's right, and reinforcement. Very good. Another issue that is top of mind always for all industries, and it's no different for manufacturing, and that's cybersecurity.
Yes, absolutely.
So I want to make sure I get this right. You all partnered with the Department of Commerce and SCDO to form what's called SCCAP, the South Carolina Cybersecurity Assistance Program, and that, as I understand it, provides some grant dollars that certain types of manufacturers, and you tell me which kind, can qualify to receive grant to help them with those types of issues.
So this grant now is in its 3rd phase, Rick. Phase 1 and 2, it was funds provided by the Department of Defense, and we had that for 3 years. Those funds were limited to helping manufacturers in the DoD supply chain within South Carolina with a bricks and mortar presence, and it was to help them prepare for a DoD certification called CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. That grant ended June 30th of 2023, and very fortunately, our partners, SCDW, wanted to maintain the momentum behind that. So we are now in phase 3 of SCCAP, and the good news is that grant is now open to all manufacturers in South Carolina,
regardless
not just the ones in the Department of Defense supply chain. So it has broadened. That grant today will help companies that maybe need CMMC certification. Perhaps they're looking for ISO 27001 certification, or perhaps they're in the automotive supply chain and they need to comply with the European standard called TISAX, T-I-S-A-X. But that grant is there to provide funds, to provide resources to help them implement those standards.
If I remember right, the Department of Defense had access to $30 million in grants at some point. Is this a part of that umbrella of grants, or is this separate?
I don't know, Rick. I don't know. This one, phase 3, there is no D&D involvement. Okay. We do have a new grant with them, and it's called Catalyst. Again, that one is in conjunction with the Department of Defense. It is Department of Defense money. We're delivering it in conjunction with Department of Employment and Workforce and the South Carolina Department of Commerce. And that is focused again, only on DoD manufacturers operating the DoD supply chain, but it's to help them modernize. So there is the manufacturing 4.0 assessment is the first thing. And if there is a suitable and approved pilot project, there are funds to help that manufacturer implement advanced manufacturing technology. If they're not quite ready for that, the grant also has funds to help them implement or modernize through the adoption of lean manufacturing tools and techniques, or perhaps get a new quality management system, an ISO 9000 compliance system, or AS 9100, or even the automotive one, IETF. So a wide-ranging grant, very generous, and again, the whole thrust of that is to modernize companies that are operating in the DoD supply chain.
Plenty of options out there.
Plenty of options. Please talk to us. Explore your options.
I'll get you out of here on this. A few months ago, you all were instrumental in putting up a new online platform called Connects South Carolina.
Right. Yes.
And that was aimed at trying to keep some business in South Carolina and hooking up manufacturers with potential vendors and potential suppliers, correct?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
It's doing very, very well. It's a program that's, we saw other MEPs, a couple other MEPs roll out a few years ago. It's something that we started exploring in 2021, built a partnership with the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance, with the South Carolina Department of Commerce, and we launched that. And in fact, I think, the person that administrates that program, Miranda Craig, was on the show not too long ago. It's early days yet. We launched it, I think, about the 5th of July, but Governor McMaster helped us get the word out on that one. And it's going very, very well. Today, we've over 100 South Carolina manufacturers have signed up for that platform. So very, very pleased, ahead of schedule. And we're looking forward to the next few months as we see it bed in, we start to see some of those results being generated. So yeah, very, very pleased with Connects.
Great stuff, Andy. I appreciate you being here.
All right.
Man.
No, thank you, Rick.
Always good to talk to Andy Carr, the CEO, the president at the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick 60-second break, and we will be back with Heath Dillard, the CEO at VisitGreenvilleSC. Be right back.
I bet you want a website that drums up business. You see, every business wants to have an effective online presence that helps their business grow. At Drum Creative, we guide you through our process that will drive results by clarifying your message with a beautiful design that's strategically optimized for search. Visit our website at drumcreative.com and let us help you drum up business by designing a website that speaks to your audience and delivers results.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I am your host, Rick Jenkins, and appreciate you joining us. Our next guest today is Heath Dillard. Heath is the president and CEO at VisitGreenvilleSC. Don't get it confused with the Greenville in North Carolina. We are in South Carolina, and what a job Heath has. Visit Greenville, I think everyone kind of knows what it is. I mean, they are basically listed as a visitors and tourist information type center, but they are so much more than that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if Heath is responsible or not for all the traffic that is happening out on Woodruff Road right now.
No.
But I might blame it on you anyway. Folks, this is Heath Dillard, CEO of Visit Greenville.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
It is good to have you. Before we talk business, let's talk about you for a quick second.
Sure.
You have not been in this market for too long. Almost a year.
No, almost a year.
Right. When this episode airs, he's probably a week or so away from a 1-year anniversary.
That's right.
And before this, you spent a ton of time in the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
That's right.
A couple decades, something like that.
Yep.
What brought you to the upstate of South Carolina?
Well, so I am a native. I'm a boomerang, I think they call us these days, right?
Right.
So I grew up in Spartanburg, so it's not completely unfamiliar territory for me. A family full of Clemson folks. I went to college at Charleston, actually, and since college, I've spent the last 18 years in Charlotte. And so I've watched Greenville both personally, got lots of friends and family still living in the area, and also professionally. You know, there were times where we in Charlotte were jealous of the types of development and growth that we were seeing in Greenville. It's always had a really beautiful nature, sort of outdoor scenic aspect to it. So it's always had that. And so when this job opened up, it's what I've been doing over the last 10 years in Charlotte, it was a no-brainer for me to move here to be closer to family. I have a wife and 3 young sons, and she's from the upstate as well. So it's been perfect. I mean, we've celebrated a year, and the transition for both personal and professionally couldn't have gone any smoother. It's been wonderful.
Coming back home. Boomerang style.
Absolutely.
And you know, Spartanburg is a great place to live too.
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
lot of great stuff happening up in Spartanburg.
Yeah, the upstate in general is attracting a lot of interest, a lot of investment. The quality of life's improving really all over the upstate. We're seeing it, ourselves. It's a completely different market than the one we left when we left home.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, 20 years ago, I came to Greenville 20 years ago, and it was not the Greenville that I see today. Even though it was beautiful, it was great, and I loved it right away. It's amazing what has happened to this community in the last 20 years. And suffice to say that 2 decades ago when I arrived, it was a hidden gem for sure, and it no longer is a hidden gem. I was joking a little bit about, is it your fault, for traffic on Woodruff Road? But Visit Greenville SC plays a part in bringing folks to the state, not only to live, but to work. Right. It is everybody knows it's a great place to live, but it is a really wonderful place to work as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, our primary role is the official destination marketing organization for both the city of Greenville and Greenville County. We're a nonprofit organization. We're primarily funded through hotel taxes, so our bills and our budget is really based on the taxes left behind by those very visitors. A lot of people would be surprised to find out that across Greenville County, there's nearly 11,000 hotel rooms open and available every single night. And so our primary objective is to influence not just leisure travel, which is really probably what made Greenville so popular over the last decade or so, but we're also the organization responsible for bringing conventions and conferences and business meetings, as well as we've had a lot of success over the last several years of attracting large sporting events like Bassmasters, NCAA men's and women's basketball tournament, the SEC women's basketball tournament, and we have a few up our sleeve that we're excited to announce in the next few months.
You can't announce them?
I can't announce them now right now. I gotta get the contract wet before I can.
All right. Well, shoot me an email.
I will do
and let me
give
know.
You an exclusive.
Let me know. Thank you. So you talked about 11,000 hotel rooms. Is that in Greenville County, did you
Just
say?
across all of Greenville County, correct?
That's, wow. Any idea what the occupancy rate is now?
Yeah, this market has completely bounced back from COVID. We bounced back much faster than most urban places across the United States for a variety of different reasons. We are back to pre-COVID levels right around 70%. And so any given night, you have 7,500 or so hotel rooms occupied across all of the municipalities in Greenville County. And that surprises a lot of people who don't always think of Greenville as a tourism destination, right? We have beautiful beaches in South Carolina, and so they don't always think of the upstate as a tourism destination. But we certainly are 365 days a year.
Well, we're a foodie destination.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of foodies out there, and they like to eat and drink, and there's Greenville's a great place to eat and drink. So 70% occupancy rate, is that good? A little low, maybe?
No, I mean across 365 days, that's well above average. I mean the 30-year average, if you look back, is somewhere in the mid to low 60s. Greenville did not see the development that a lot of other urban destinations saw up until the mid 2010s. So somewhere in 15, 16, Greenville really started to see some supply growth accelerate, which brought down its occupancy just a bit. So Greenville has run in the mid 70s, as it was growing in popularity. And you talked about as it was no longer a hidden gem. It took a little while for the hotel development to catch up, but it's done that now. 70% is still a really great market. And so we're seeing more hotel rooms sold than we've ever seen before. 2.7 million in 2022, and over $314 million in hotel revenue. So not only are we seeing the hotel rooms being sold, but we're seeing them being sold at rate premiums that we haven't experienced in this market ever before as well.
So the higher the occupancy rate, the more rooms, the more dollars that funnels its way down to Visit Greenville to help turn it back into
it's in our own organization's interest to ensure that we're attracting people to this market, filling it, and ensuring that hotels can command respectable rates, because the more of that revenue that exists within those businesses, the taxes that are left behind are able to funnel to us and other organizations. I think that's the other misconception about tourism, is that it doesn't leave behind a positive impact. But our organization receives only a small percentage of the overall taxes that are left behind. Municipalities across Greenville County have leveraged that spending in those tax dollars through hotel occupancy taxes and through the 2% hospitality tax for food and beverage, and they've reinvested them in their community. So, some have done parks, some have done other amenities, part of the debt service of Bon Secure's Wellness Arena. We've helped develop the Swamp Rabbit Trail and Unity Park. There's all sorts of things that the communities across Greenville County have done to leverage these tourism-related taxes to make our own quality of life better, to give us the kind of amenities that we can enjoy as citizens and don't necessarily have to pay for.
That's good stuff. Back to the hotels for a quick second. I have been amazed over the last several years that more and more hotels continue to be built, more and more and more. And every time another one is built, I was like, we can't absorb these amounts of rooms. I'm sure there are hotels that are being squeezed out here and there, but I don't hear about them. I hear about the big ones going up, like the Bohemian or whatever. Do you know of anything that might be on the horizon hotel-wise?
Yeah, anything that was already coming out of the ground during COVID continued to get developed, but otherwise, the development pipeline slowed, and so we're in this really sort of weird spot where a lot of the construction projects that took place during COVID have opened and finished their construction, and not yet having a lot come out of the ground. I anticipate that in the next 12 months that's going to change. So we don't anticipate a lot of new supply growth in 2023 and for the better part of 2024. But my sense is that we will see a half dozen to 10 new projects start construction within the next 12 to 14 months, which means that we'll see an uptick in inventory in 25 and 26. So there's still a lot of interest in this market. You mentioned, we're not a hidden gem. Not just for visitors, but for capital investment and development as well. We've got some very high quality brands that keep an eye on this market, and I expect the development partnerships that they have will find a way to get built in the next few years.
If there is a list of great places to live in the United States, Greenville is on it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing, list after list after list. But like we said a minute ago, it's a great place to work too. You mentioned that it is also Visit Greenville's responsibility to bring in conventions and conferences and things like that. So a couple questions for you. One, tell me a little bit about how that works. But what I really want to get into is the convention center, the Greenville Convention Center. There has been talk about it continuing, not continuing, being replaced with a city conference center. Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'll talk broadly about that role, and then more specifically about that venue and the opportunity for continued venue investment. We see our organization's philosophy is that tourism can really be leveraged as the front porch for broader economic development. It used to be where service sector industries really needed to think about quality of life for talent attraction, and that manufacturing and those sort of large industrial industries more or less needed land, and they needed tax rebates, and they needed those kind of things. And even those days are behind us. No matter what kind of industry that you're in today, you want to be sure that you're in the kind of community that can attract talent, because talent is the competitive advantage. And so we really see a huge opportunity for aligning the tourism industry with the broader economic development initiatives of our region. And so the other thing that we're doing is not only promoting Greenville as a great place with all of these wonderful amenities, the same amenities that attract somebody here to visit are many of the same amenities that attract somebody to live here. And so they're not really all that different, right? We want great arts and cultural community. We want great culinary community. As you've already mentioned, we have really beautiful outdoor and natural sort of scenic amenities And our communities have done a really beautiful job of connecting them through threads of trails and parks that people can easily access. And so all of that is attractive to visitors, and at the same time, it's attractive to potential residents and potential talent that our current industries and current businesses can pull from. On the convention side, I think the historical approach for our organization is that we're very externally focused. We've got a sales team of 5 people. They're on the road a lot. They're in DC and they're in Las Vegas, and they're where all the associations are, where they're meeting, trying to sell and promote Greenville as a place to bring your meeting. What I think we're finding is there's a great opportunity for us to continue to align with the industries that already exist. We have very influential people in their own technical fields and who are on boards and in some cases board chairs of very powerful associations. And we are working to build those relationships to say, hey, we're still going to try to bring conventions and conferences here, but there's a double win if we can get the kind of conferences here that align with the industry sectors that we're targeting from an economic development standpoint. How do we leverage tourism to help bring industry clusters that might exist, right? We have a strong manufacturing base. We have this really sophisticated supply chain and logistics infrastructure. We're seeing a growing tech base and professional services base and continued bio and life sciences. How do we leverage tourism to help the economic development agencies be more successful in recruiting not just the talent for those fields, but the businesses that might relocate here as well? So that's an ongoing strategy for us. I would say that we're in the pretty early stages of that. We started to sponsor some of the economic development events, and so we found open opportunities for collaboration, probably stronger than any of these organizations have ever had before. And then specifically, right, Greenville's, my early assessment of Greenville coming from Charlotte was in Charlotte, we led with a lot of the logistical infrastructural things that you need to host a convention. We had 750 daily flights and 150 nonstop destinations. We had a convention center that had a lot of meeting space, and we had the hotel package that could accommodate large groups of people. And that would often get us on lists for folks to bring their conventions. But then we would be shortlisted with places like Nashville and Austin and Tampa and Louisville and some other places. And we found that we may not have punched at our weight class compared to some of those more recreational friendly destinations. And Greenville's on the opposite end of that spectrum. I have had countless people in the association world and corporate travel planners who have said, hey, my event is too big for Greenville, but I have heard so many great things about it, I'm at least going to bring my board retreat there. So there's some things that we can't literally host size-wise. And even with that sort of off the table, people are still interested in conducting business in Greenville simply because of how we've led with the recreational elements. And so our challenge in the future, if we want to continue to be a meetings and convention destination, and if we want to leverage that sector of the tourism industry as a catalyst for broader economic development, is to think about those meeting facilities. The local community has talked about a downtown conference center. I don't see it as competitive or as either or with the current convention center. I think there's an opportunity for both. I think we're really blessed to have a convention center that we currently have with the size that we have. It needs some continued investment. We've shown through our annual meeting that you can host really successful events in there. Our team was very creative in terms of how we decorated it and how we planned and programmed it, and we've seen nothing but incredibly positive feedback out of that. We host really large events there already, and that convention center team does really great work. But a downtown venue allows us to connect to the largest concentration of hotel rooms, and it's walkable to the recreational amenities that we're already hearing are really important to meeting planners.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I think with the convention center. First of all, it's absolutely huge for a town this size, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, it was created for the textile industry way back when. But one of the issues I think that exists with it in terms of recruiting people to go there is the fact that it does not have a hotel attached to it in any way. And of course, there's some hotels that are close by, but there's not one sitting there. What are the odds that we get a downtown convention center in the next 5 years?
Well, I think it would be a downtown conference center.
Right.
I mean, it would, a building of that size and scope would probably take 3 years to build anyway, but I think it's increasingly likely. I think you're finding more and more political will. I think from a public funding component of it, I think that we have enough capacity through the hotel accommodations taxes and the hospitality taxes that we can support, a matched private investment. So I don't think that's going to be the challenge for us. I think the challenge for us is there's already been so much development downtown that a building of that size requires certain, scale for available land, and that's becoming more and more difficult to come by. So I think that'll be the bigger challenge. But I think there's, plenty of interest in getting it built from multiple developers, and I think there's a public appetite to get it done too.
It seems like a few years ago that it was close to happening, and then that kind of faltered and went away. So we'll see what happens there. I'm going to get you out of here on this. The tourism industry, we all know in South Carolina is huge, and most of us think, as you alluded to earlier, of Charleston when they think about it. But that, of course, is not the case, at least in totality, for that tourism industry. Folks might not know that the tourism industry is worth $30 billion in South Carolina to the economy. And what I find fascinating is that in 2022, it was up 11% over the prior year, which was a record.
Absolutely.
The most, $29.7 billion last year. And this year, I don't know that we're going to quite meet that, but it's a daggone good year. Anyway, tell the folks how those types of dollars really impact livelihoods in South Carolina that they might not even be aware of.
Yeah, I'll bring it home here to Greenville in the upstate. Is just in our own MSA, we have more than 51,000 people who rely on the hospitality and leisure industry for employment. And so with all of the technical automation that you have in industries all across the economy, hospitality is very much a people business. It's very labor intensive. You still need human beings to do that work. And so more than 1 in 9 employed people in our region work specifically in this industry. So the 7 million visitors that show up here on an annual basis are generating the kind of demand that we as local residents just simply couldn't support. And so I think that's really important. And most people, when they think of tourism, they simply think of our wait staff or their hostesses or dishwashers and things like that. But I would challenge folks to think about the variety of jobs that happen, behind the scenes. Every hotel has an accounting system, or an accountant or a controller. They have HR. Every restaurant you go to has a website and web development. It spurs jobs beyond the things that you typically interact with when you go out to dinner or when you show up in a hotel. And so it's a really diverse skill set needed to operate these businesses. And the vast majority of it is locally owned. So when somebody spends money in a tourism-related business, it's impacting a local proprietor as opposed to sending money to a corporate office somewhere else.
Right. Heath, really good stuff, man. I appreciate you joining us. It was good to meet you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much.
Spend some time with you folks. That is Heath Dillard. He is the CEO at VisitGreenvilleSC. Really smart guy. Enjoyed this conversation, folks. That wraps another episode of Let's Talk Business South Carolina. We will see you next time.